Hello, everybody, and welcome to Kingdom Connections. Alan Williams here with Tyler Bowles. Tyler, how's it going, sir?
Oh man, if I was any better, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. How are you, brother?
I tell you, I'm doing great. A little tired and ready for spring.
I understand that. It's cold.
Something about get the holidays behind me. I'm ready. I'm ready for it to warm up.
I know we got that snowfall coming, and you and your snow Grinch attitude.
Ooh, I tell you, I got my snow Grinch suit pressed and ready to go. But yeah, it's we do have a little winter weather coming, and by the time you hear this, it may be gone. But
you're hoping anyway,
right? I hope so. But thank you guys for joining us. Once again, we want to remind everybody: please like and share this thing. Comment. Let us know you're out there and listening. We'd love to hear from you, and you can get this on all your platforms. So just let us know you're out there and you're listening, and share it with somebody.
Yeah, and look, I'm just going to be painfully honest here because I think we've established that at this point is I don't mind being blunt, and it's probably to a fault. But anyways, the video side of it, it's going to be depending on the engagement.
Right.
I know, like we were talking just before we aired, like just to come in here and set all this up, it was an hour, so
yeah,
it was a lot less work to just do audio, and I'm fine either way. I don't mind doing the work if it has higher engagement. So if you're enjoying the video or the audio, please let us know.
Right.
Also, I forgot to mention, so we did have somebody, I guess mail in, text in, however you want to say it.
Uh-huh.
And they asked, because there was no way for me to reply. So we'll just address it on the air.
Right.
I had somebody ask, because we were talking about jazz and everything on one of our other episodes. So they were asking what some of our favorite jazz musicians were, if we had any. Me, I'm a huge Oscar Peterson fan.
Right.
I love Oscar Peterson. He's probably the one that I first started listening to.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible musician. Matter of fact, I still study his music, and I learn a lot from him.
I got you.
So do you have any favorite musicians, or is it just kind of one of them things where you put on a playlist and just let it roll and don't really pay much attention to who it is?
Right. And I actually had a similar question. Somebody approached me about with that question. Maybe the same person, not sure. But either way, I actually referred them to you as far as a name, because when I say I'm jazz, like I just turn on like smooth jazz, slow, winter jazz, coffee jazz,
Sure.
All these things that you can find on YouTube or whatever. And it's just basically just the music part of it, that I listen to. And then, I couldn't say their names, but there's several good jazz bass players out there that I like to watch some of their little stuff. But, no, to say I got a favorite, not really. I mean, I just like the mellow jazz sound. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Well, and not to get off on this tangent again, we've already talked about it.
That's all right.
But man, there's just something about it. Like it's kind of one of them. There's actually, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it's called. As soon as I figure it out, I will let you know. There is a genre of music that was created back when classical music was a thing. This was back during the days of Mozart and Beethoven. It was literally, like, I want to say it was Latin, pretty much for it's music to be forgotten about. Furniture music. That's what it translated to.
Furniture music. Okay.
Yes. It was called furniture music. And literally all it was music that was just in the background.
Oh, wow.
And jazz actually had a lot of influence from that.
Right.
Because it had a lot of ambience and it had a lot of repeating parts and stuff that when it played in a loop, you didn't realize it played in a loop because it was so much in the background that you kind of like, you knew it was there, and you know it was there if it stopped playing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so much a focal point. So it a lot of it was just like 4/8 bars that just looped over and over all day. And that's all it played.
Interesting.
Furniture music.
Furniture music. I don't think I've heard that term. So that's interesting right there. I'll have to look that up for sure.
I'm about to look it up while you're talking.
But yeah, absolutely. But yeah, bottom line is to me, that's kind of like my unwind and, listening to some background noise and, just kind of keeps me grounded a little bit. Ooh, that's wild how that just led into that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I kind of wanted to get some thoughts and just kind of maybe spitball this thing around, but the ideal I heard someone tell me not too long ago, and I actually just brought it into a message that I just ministered, and talking about the term grounding and being grounded. And it's most places you look, it says grounding theory or whatever. And I encourage you to look it up if you're interested in finding out more about it. But the whole concept is that, kicking your shoes off and actually letting your feet, make contact with the ground again, whether it's in the grass or whatever. And also said that, being in water is kind of a form of that as well. So, but just grounding, I guess, reconnecting or something. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going off on a big Mother Earth tangent and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I thought it was kind of interesting because I can see where I've been like that. I mean, there's just something about, when you lay on the grass or I don't know. And some people are like, oh, no, we don't want that. But, that's, to me, being in the country, there's just something about that. Something about putting your feet off the dock in the lake or, or your feet in the sand at the beach that just kind of recenters you, if you will.
Well, and I'll tell you, for me, a lot of it, I'm very much into symbolism, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, anytime I get to just like put my feet in the sand or put my feet in the water,
right?
It absolutely is like a recentering, but it's also a reminder for me, like, oh, I don't have to work for a little while.
Oh yeah,
and so
it's official.
Yeah, well,
right.
and it's such a stress relief,
right?
Like I don't know how it is for you, but when my wife and I go on vacation. Mm-hmm. I'm stressed out, like,
oh, yeah.
Because you're planning everything, and then you have to drive down there, and then you have to get your finances in order to make sure you don't overspend when you're down there.
Right.
But you're dotting all your I's, you're crossing all your T's, and you finally get to where you're going, and you get settled.
Right.
It's just like this, but yeah, it's very much a recentering thing, and it not to go back on a tangent on further episodes, but it does. Right. It causes a reflection, at least for me.
Right.
You sit and you think on things. Like, that's when I do the most thinking. And it's probably not the most healthy thing.
Right.
Because, like, at some point your mind has to stop. But I do most of my thinking and most of my, like, creative brainstorming when I'm not at work.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Absolutely. Weird. Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, that's something that, I don't know. I don't say it's unfortunate, but, I deal with that a lot. My mind just don't want to, And it's funny how that is, right? When your body is like exhausted and you lay your head on your pillow and your mind's like, nope, 90 miles an hour, and I couldn't tell you how many times I'm trying to relax and I've remodeled the whole house in my head. I mean, just stuff like that all the time, right?
Yeah.
But that's funny how you said that about, and I try to refrain from laughing, brother, but, my kids are grown. Actually, my baby boy, and if he heard that, he'd shoot me. But anyway, just turned 21. And so, this, to me, that's just, I'm aging myself there. But, I remember those vacations and I'm like, was it really peaceful? Was it stressful? I enjoyed the time with the family, but a lot of times, man, it was, I ain't gonna lie, sometimes it was chaotic to get to that rest, and then what we took from it, and the reason that I kind of chuckled within is because you're just getting started with that, and and I'm not saying it's gonna be chaotic. I'm not speaking that on you at all, not at all.
It already has been,
but it does get interesting. There's no car big enough, brother, for all the stuff you have to take for a weekend.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm a duffel bag guy,
Yeah, me too.
But, it doesn't work that way when you got a big family. So,
yeah, my wife alone will pack up a whole house. So
I did not say that. It wasn't me.
I did, okay? I will gladly sleep in the doghouse for that.
There you go.
Because she knows it. So, anyways.
I had we did a retreat one time, and I had a brother, I said, bring one bag, because we were kind of limited on space. And he was telling me about a big bag that he had, and it was like, take a whole back seat bag. He said, it's one bag. So,
I mean, he's not wrong.
Right. So I had to be a little more specific on that.
A bag that can fit in the trunk and not take up, just an incredible amount of space.
Right.
A normal duffel bag.
Right. But, I really believe there is something to, like you said, I believe there is something to grounding, because there's something about, man, when I put my feet in the sand, or, just the sensory feel of it, I guess, or just new carpet. putting your bare feet on new carpet or whatever the case may be. And, you could keep going with this, but if you look up the theory, there is really a theory out there, and it talks like it can help with anxiety, can help with, just stress level. It can actually, it's a study, a theory. There's not a lot of proof out there, but it's something about, it could actually help you physically. Like if you have a lot of aches and pains, it can help you physically. And, I see the benefit of that. I mean, just in my everyday life, I could see where that could come into play.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And just kind of going off with that. So at the gym that I go to, it's got a sauna. I didn't understand the benefit of the sauna until I really started looking into it. And I really do think that has a lot to do with that. And the reason I say that is because it's so hot in there, you don't want to bring any electronics. So, obviously you don't want to fry your phone.
Right.
And, I'm in there for 20, 30 minutes.
Right.
And it's just like, you're just sitting there. And again, it's kind of one that I look forward to it. I used to hate it.
Right.
And now I haven't done it in a while and I'm missing it.
Right.
And so I started doing research on it because I'm like, I'll be honest with you, until you get used to it, it's rough.
Right.
It is real rough.
Oh yeah.
But I started looking at the statistics and it said that it could decrease your cortisol levels, which decreases your stress. It actually says that it decreases the risk of heart attack by over 50% for people who use it on a regular basis.
Right.
And it's not just the heat and because it does open up your blood vessels, so it lowers your blood pressure, that kind of thing.
Right.
But a lot of it does have to do with the fact that it lowers your stress. Stress causes so many health issues that whatever you can do to alleviate that or to bring it down in some way, shape, or form, it's going to help you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
No doubt.
And so, to me, that is a grounding thing for me.
Yeah.
Because you go to the gym and it hurts. I'll be honest with you, I have to drag myself into the door sometimes.
Yeah.
But man, when I'm done and I get to go walk into that sauna for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I look forward to it.
Right.
And I just sit there and I'm just like,
right.
The weight of the world gets lifted off your shoulders for that 20, 30 minutes.
Right.
And so I think it's crucial, whether it be that, a vacation, whether you go fishing, hunting, whatever.
Right.
Take some time to ground yourself because you can get caught up in so many other things that life gets the better of you and the good things in life pass by.
Right.
Right.
And we're saying this I'm saying this coming from a podcast, so I know it's kind of it's kind of backward, but you need those times too just to unplug and just kind of get alone. And sometimes I think that's a big part of it too. It's just getting in there where your mind just kind of take a breath and just take I think that plays into that part too, because I'm sure if I'm outside in the grass barefooted, I'm not on social media or whatever. I'm doing, something else. My mind's somewhere else.
I mean, some people might be.
Well, they could be. But, that's what I love about it. But I agree. Everybody needs something that kind of gets them away from the everyday grind or whatever. I'm a firm believer in everybody having a healthy hobby or something to that effect. If, or something that just kind of gets you unplugged for a little bit, get away from the everyday normal push, grind, whatever. And, I love hunting, I enjoy fishing. And the thing I love the most about that is not necessarily, having a successful hunt or going fishing and catching a boatload, but some of the best times are just sitting on a bank or just sitting in a stand, watching the bluebirds that are there every day. And then all of a sudden, wow, they're highlighted. I see everything and see the sun come up, and just stuff like that. It's just amazing to me when it's dead quiet and then all of a sudden the birds start singing, and it's just, I don't know, it does something to my soul. And
I think that's God taking his artistic paintbrush and just...
Right. And it's at those moments, man, I'm not, don't get me wrong, I do take advantage of those times sometimes to pray, but at the same time, it's like being in your prayer room sometimes. I don't know if you do it, but I just want to sit. I don't want to say a word. I just want to listen. If he says anything, I'm here. I just want to be in his presence, whatever it is. I mean, and I think that that's those moments for me, just sitting there and just,
Yeah. No, I'm with you. So there was a place that I used to go to all the time, and I hate it because it got washed out. We had what was it, Hurricane Florence? I think that come through. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So there's a place I used to go to, and I'm not even trying to have any puns when I say this, but you know that song, "When I Need a Shelter, When I Need a Friend, I Go to the Rock."
Right.
Well, there was a place off the Yadkin River for y'all North Carolina people out there. There's a place off the Yadkin River where it had a rock that extended out from the bank a pretty good ways, but it was in the rougher part of the river, so you could actually hear the river, watch it go.
Oh man!
And man, like I would sit there for hours, like in my worst moments, in my most depressed times.
Yeah,
I would just go there and sit.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I would pray, but sometimes I would just sit. And when that hurricane came through, it wiped that place out. So I'm looking for a new place to go.
Right.
But no, I'm with you, man. I would just go and sit for hours.
Right.
I went. I remember, man, like there were some summers. Now, obviously, I'm not going in the middle of the day in the summer. That was miserable. I've tried it.
Right.
But I'd go at like 4 or 5 o'clock, and I wouldn't come back till after dark.
Wow.
I'd left my phone in my truck.
That's
I
cool.
just said, hey, this is where I'm going to be. I'm probably not going to leave till after dark. If it's an emergency, you know where to find me.
Right.
And I left my phone in my truck, and I just went and sat and
Wow.
had no distractions. It was cool. There was a field across the river where they would run bird dogs and stuff. I just sit there and watch them.
Oh wow,
And
that is cool.
but just that peace and solidarity in those moments.
Oh yeah.
And I got to see so many things. Like, you know, you see deer running through that same field, and it was in the summer and in the spring. So, you know, you had some of the younger deer that were still following their mama and just watching that. Like, man, it was cool.
Right.
I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I, you know, again, we all need those times. We need those moments, and I'm the same way. Somebody will. Sometimes Amy will ask me, "What's on your mind?" Because I'm just kind of just gazing off. But like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But like, you know, I can be sitting in my living room and just. I want that moment, and I'm just gazing off and just kind of, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just, you know, I'm just looking at that spot, or, you know, and my favorite is, you know, just sitting outside, whether it's on the porch or whatever, and just, you know, I get lost in the top of the trees looking at the squirrels or whatever, you know, and, you know, I think that those times I don't do it near enough. And I don't think any of us do anymore, but I do encourage you. I mean, you know, take time to unplug, unwind, and I know that kind of went off. I you know, again, I don't claim to be an expert in this grounding theory, but I could see where it would benefit you physically and spiritually. Just getting that time alone and being quiet sometimes. You know, I know we just went into this new year, and you know, a lot of people pray and asking God for a lot of stuff. And sometimes we need to make sure we're making time to just sit.
Yeah.
Just sit and listen to him. I think I'm a big advocate that part of your prayer time should be, if not the biggest part of your prayer time, should be just sitting and listening for him, or just sitting in his presence.
Yeah, that's it.
Heard an interesting story, and I think it goes along with this. If I'm way out left field, forgive me.
We'll roll with it. I like stories.
But, you know, Billy Graham, there was a story about Billy Graham, and you may have heard it, and it may be in his book or his autobiography. I'll get it out. But, you know, they said that he went to Bible college, and they had took a trip to, I believe it was John Wesleyan's place, where he lived. And on that trip, they took him and toured the house or whatever. And by his bed, there was a place at 2 bare spots in the carpet. And, you know, you can kind of know where I'm going here. But anyway, one of the students asked, you know, what was that and what was significant about it? And they said, well, that's where he prayed every day, John Wesley. Well, they continued their tour, loaded up the bus, and they started doing a head count, and they realized there was a student short. And they went back in to find him, and they found Billy Graham in those prints beside the bed, praying, God, do it again. But it was something about that. It was a grounding thing, right? I mean, he was there every day, just grounding himself to the will of the Father and to God, right? And that, to me, that's what prayer is too. So, long story short, this theory, if you really look at it, I mean, yeah, it lines up with the Word of God. I mean, really. And just grounding ourselves back into Him and just taking that time to sometimes just to remember what He's done, what He's done to get you to here, and just to bask in His glory. I mean,
Yeah, and I know you had just preached a sermon on this thing, and which was incredible. I don't know that I've ever heard a message preached quite like that. But something that I
hear that a lot, and I don't know.
It is a good thing.
I'm just messing.
It is a good thing.
I'm just messing. It's all Him.
But there is a particular point that I do want you to kind of expand on a little bit, because I don't know, I can't word it quite like you can. You were talking about when Moses was before the burning bush.
Yeah.
And God had told him to take off his shoes because he was on holy ground. I want you to kind of expand on that, because there was just a way that you worded that I just had a light bulb moment go off.
Right.
And I can't explain it, but I want you to expand, because when we're talking about grounding, I never looked at that as holy ground.
Right.
So can you expand on that for those that are watching and listening?
Okay. Well, there was a lot there, so I don't want to go through the whole thing. For one, he told Moses to take his shoes off, and I was looking into that, and shoes. Think about it. I mean, they're a source of comfort, a source of protection, a source of mobility or whatever it may be. And he's saying, take that stuff off and trust in me. Come into me. But when I was reading this story, all of a sudden this stuff come back to me about grounding, because a coworker was one of the first ones I heard ever mention it, and I started looking into it. But he said, take your shoes off, you're on holy ground. And I was thinking about this grounding theory on one side, and I was thinking about when Moses actually planted his feet in the sand of that desert on the other side. And I was thinking, they say that all this happens because of the electrical current that the earth puts off or whatever. And I was thinking, what did he feel? We can read what God said, we can read what Moses said, but, in between the lines there, what did he feel there? And I almost wonder if he didn't feel the earth. You know what I'm saying? Well, I know he felt the earth, but you know how it is when you put your feet in the sand and you just kind of feel the cool when it's a 90-degree day or whatever, or you feel the heat. You feel it and you become sensitive to it. And I can almost imagine God saying, "You feel that?"
Yeah.
For God so loved the world. Do you feel that? That I love my creation. I love what I have created, and I'm here because they're crying out, and I need to send somebody to get my people.
Yeah, that's so good.
And so I thought, that's, to me, it just kind of connected.
Yeah. And I can't remember if I talked about it on here or if I talked about it in a sermon or a teaching of mine. But when you look at in John 3:16, it says, "For God so loved the world." If you look at that in the Greek, it's actually where we get the word cosmos from, which is the galaxy. Mm-hmm. You think, when we learned that scripture when we were kids, I mean, that was probably the first scripture that most everybody learned, or at least when I was growing up, that was like the number one Bible verse they taught in children's church.
Right.
Because, and we had talked about this in the past, talking about the book of John, because when you get a good understanding of the book of John, it transcends into every other book in the Bible, because Jesus, in some way, shape, or fashion, is in all 66 books.
Yeah.
But when you think for God to love the world, to me, I always looked at it as, the people, God's people, however you want to look at it, whether it be everybody in the earth or however. I didn't look at it as far as he loves not just his creations on the earth, but he loves the earth itself, the trees, the birds, all the animals, all the things therein.
Right.
And you look in Genesis where he says, let the earth bring forth. Can you imagine how much potential God had to place in the ground
Right.
for him not to just say, let there be trees, let there be apples, let there be oranges, but he says, he calls to the earth and he says, let the earth bring forth.
Right.
That is the potential that is just in the dust of the earth.
Right.
That he took that much time to craft and to just really mold together. And then he took the time to make the stars and all of the galaxies, the cosmos.
Right.
It goes far beyond just the people in the earth.
Right.
And I like to think of it, when I told you I had that light bulb moment, when he told Moses, take your shoes off because you're standing on holy ground.
Right.
I can't help but to think, again, God said in the beginning, let the earth bring forth.
Right.
I can't imagine. Could Moses, just follow me.
Mm-hmm.
Could Moses have felt the potential that was in the ground as his feet began to trod into the holy place?
Right. Right.
I get chills just thinking about that.
Yeah.
Because how often is it do we find ourselves, again, like we talked about before, where you're caught up in the daily grind of life?
Right.
Now Moses was on this journey for different reasons, but Moses had a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And it's not until you separate yourself from the things that you are doing and the things that you're wrapped up in, and you go, okay, God, I'm going to give this time to you.
Right.
I'm going to take off my shoes because I'm on holy ground. How often is it? It's not until we get into a holy place that we begin to realize potential and we begin to get these revelations.
Right.
And I just can't help but think, like, what popped into Moses' head as soon as his feet touched that holy ground? Because there's so much potential in that ground.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it just blew my mind. And when you were talking about that during your sermon, I was just like,
right. Well, and and we try to figure that out, and it's like, okay, well, that ground was holy because the angel or God was there. God was speaking through the bush, right?
Yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't God omnipresent?
Yeah.
So God was everywhere, right? So I think maybe that he was like, this is your moment right here, this space. I want to show you, and I think that's why it's important to go back to what we were talking about earlier. It's important to find those moments when you just sit and you just listen to God, reconnect with God. Ever since I read that about Billy Graham, I know it sounds like it's in left field. I have a way of doing that, by the way. But I know it sounds like it's in left field, but it is connected if you really think about it, because he was like, and we have a brother here. I'm not going to say his name on the air just without his permission. He knows who he is, but he's always saying, "Do it again, Lord." Right? And I pray that a lot too. And I'm thinking that's what that prayer was. Do it again.
Yeah.
And God was like, I think at that moment he was telling Moses, he's like, I'm going to do it again. I created this thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to do it again. And I know you can go back, man, I can go on about this. Believe me. I like I said, I went, but you can go all the way back to Genesis. Well, God cursed the earth in Genesis, right? But at the same time, it's still his creation. We were under a curse, right? When we were living in sin.
Yeah.
So, I think that there's just a redemptive quality about what happened right there on the backside of that desert.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that we need to have those experiences in our lives as well, whether it's not just physically, but spiritually. You need to do it both. You need to find those moments when you can just, just reconnect. So,
yeah. Yeah, well, and even Moses, however you want to look at it, Moses in some way, shape, or fashion had a revelation in that moment.
Oh, yeah.
But it wasn't until he obeyed the voice of God and took time to actually take his shoes off, to get out of his normalcy, to get out of his what he considers to be comfortable.
Right.
It wasn't until that moment that the revelation came.
Right.
And one of the most key things that I had studied, this was a few years ago now, but it really just it revolutionized my walk with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Was and I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this without going on a 45-minute tangent. But when the word of who Jesus was had began to spread, this was but before he really began to pick the disciples,
Right.
They heard about the Messiah, and John the Baptist had declared, this is he.
Right.
You find that there were a couple disciples
Mm-hmm.
who said, this is the man Jesus.
Right.
Let's go up and talk to him. And instead of it being Jesus, what can you do for me? Instead of them going, we know you're the Son of God, so perform a miracle. We see the Pharisees actually tried to do that
Right.
when he was
Yeah.
being condemned, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of going that route, they said, can you show us where you stay? And I thought that was the most profound thing,
Wow.
because I can't imagine the conversations they had.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was like, yeah, I'll show you where I stay. But it wasn't like the revelation wasn't like, okay, this is where he sleeps.
Yeah.
But it was the fact that when you invite somebody to your house, when you invite somebody into that space, you were becoming it's becoming a more intimate friendship, relationship,
Right.
however you want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know about you, but in rare circumstances would I invite a stranger into my home.
Right.
But when you begin to establish those friendships and you establish those relationships, that's when you go like, yeah, come on to the house.
Right.
We'll eat together. We'll have fellowship. Those things.
Right.
And I just thought it was so profound that they asked Jesus, where do you stay?
Right.
And it was in that moment where they began to receive the revelation that, man, he really is who they say he is.
Right.
But it wasn't until they had that intimate moment where they saw where he stayed.
Right.
And the same thing with Moses. He got revelation on things when he took off his shoes on holy ground and he obeyed the Lord and he took the time. Because you can't help but wonder too, he's in a desert.
Right.
I'd imagine it gets so hot that stuff just lights on fire all the time.
Yeah.
What made him stop and look at this bush?
Right.
Because you're going to have to sit and look at that for a minute for you to
Right.
go, wait a minute, this thing's not burning up.
Right.
What made him stop and go, this one's different?
Right.
It was because he took the time to stop what
Right.
he was doing,
Mm-hmm.
recenter himself,
Right.
and go approach the bush.
Right.
Which then we know that the Lord spoke out of the burning bush. But he had to take the time to stop.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key point in all of this is
Right.
you've got to take time to stop.
Yeah.
Put whatever you're doing, put it down and just take a minute. And whether it's, whether you're on the side of a river
Mm-hmm.
or whether you're in a tree stand or you're, sitting on a dock, whatever,
Right.
take time and just stop.
Yeah.
Because that is where I have found in my personal life, that is where the Lord speaks to me the most.
Right.
It's not when I'm, trying to call down fire out of heaven. I mean, that's great and things happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I receive my most deepest moments of revelation when I just stop and don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when the Lord starts speaking to me.
Right. Right.
I mean, would you have the same experiences or is it just me?
No, absolutely. And fun fact, if you look it up, there is a bush that is known to catch fire in some of these desert places, and I could not tell you the name. Again, that was from a study long ago I did. But if you look it up, there is a bush that is known to, I guess, spontaneously combust or whatever you want to call it in these heated areas. But of course, they burn up. This one was not consumed, but yeah, you're right. I think too it was the position of him beforehand. He was on the backside, away from everybody. It was him and a bunch of sheep. Right? The Bible. Now I don't know if anyone else was present, but the Bible doesn't mention anyone else.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, I agree 100%, man, and just taking that time to be grounded, lack of a better word, but just to ground ourselves back in this truth. And to when we do that, our senses become more aware. Like I said, when I'm sitting in that stand, those birds are around my house every day. But it's something about sitting in that stand, I take notice.
Yeah.
I get focused on it. And when I get focused on it, I'm telling you, my mind goes to another place. At that time, I'm not thinking about my bills. I'm not thinking about work. My mind is just in a whole different place. And so we all need those moments. And husbands and wives, I'm going to put this out there, not a licensed counselor here, but you also need to let your spouses have those moments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Love to be together. My wife is my best friend. No doubt, hands down. But at the end of the day, we need our time. You know what I mean? It might be her in her study. It may be me in the stand. I mean, she's got her place. I got my place. And I don't, if she goes back there, I'm not going back there to let her have her time. You know what I mean? So anyway.
Yeah, no, that's so good. But we're reaching the end of our time.
Yeah.
Do you have any closing statements, anything you want to address before we sign off here?
Just carve out those times, guys, those times with God, carve them out. And it may be discipline at first. We've used that word already this year.
Oh, yeah.
It may be discipline at first where you have to say, I am going to do this. But I'm telling you, once you get to that place, it's worth it. It's worth every minute. And just take that time to unwind and unplug, and at that time, in those moments, I don't have music in the background. I know we're talking about jazz. It's just me.
Yeah.
So I can hear everything. I'm listening. I'm aware of everything. So
yeah. No, that's good. And just to second that, take the time to get rooted.
Right.
Because you can't grow roots if you're always moving out and about and you're not taking the time to get grounded and to stay centered in Him.
Right.
And as those roots grow deeper, it's a known fact that the deeper that the roots go in a tree, the harder it is to get knocked down.
Wow.
So make sure you take that time. But guys, we love you. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.
And we will see you guys in the next episode. God bless. Hey guys, real quick before I let you go, this is Worship Pastor Tyler Bowles, and I'm also one of the podcast hosts here. I just want to take a minute to invite you to our services if you're in the Lexington, North Carolina area and you don't already have a home church. We have services on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. and Wednesday night at 7 p.m. We have programs in place for all ages, so please bring your family, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, have them bring their kids. We would love to get to meet you and connect with all of you and partner with you and believe with you for the things that you are believing God for. Because something very powerful happens whenever we gather together in one mind with one accord, because the Bible says then a suddenly happens. And I just want to agree with you and bind together with you for the suddenly moments, for those breakthroughs you may need. So if you were in the Lexington, North Carolina area and you don't already have a home church, the address is 117 Harris Road, Lexington, North Carolina, 27292. Again, that is 117 Harris Road, Lexington, North Carolina, 27292. We would love to see you. We would love to see your family. We would love to get to know you. We love you. We appreciate you. We are praying for you. God bless.